Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Outside the Panels, and have we got a show for you today? Hot off the presses, I am talking to the writer of AWA Upshot's biggest hit, Casual Fling. Talking, of course, to Jason Starr. Jason, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me about your book. I have to say, right from the top, I absolutely loved this book. It was well nuanced, well observed. There's the stuff that's in there isn't gratuitous. It was just, it's just a proper story, start to finish. And by the time I got to the end of it, I was like that. So well done, my friend. Well
That's
done.
what we want. We want that reaction at the end.
Cool, excellent. So we're going to start at the top and work our way down. All right, and we'll get into the nitty gritty of Casual Fling. Let's start. How did you break into comics? How did you manage to cross that bridge?
Well, I've written many novels, many crime novels, thrillers, many of them published in other languages and in England, etc. And some editors over at DC had been reading my books, one in particular, Will Dennis, and he asked me to do an introduction for Brian Azzarello's 100 Bullets, so one of the trades. So I wrote an introduction, got to know Will better. I think the first thing I did actually was a short story, it was for a JSA anthology, a sand story that I wrote, and then I did some more stuff for DC, another project with Brian actually over there, and that was The Avenger and Doc Savage and Batman, a mashup comic series, and then Will asked me to pitch ideas for Vertigo Crime. They were starting an imprint, crime imprint. So I pitched an idea called The Chill that I wound up writing there. And then, the thing is, I don't think there's any set way that people get involved in comics. There's always some meandering path. Some people are writing non-comics like me, like writing fiction, and they wind up that way. Some people are doing web comics. Some people are editors first, and then they wind up writing their first thing. So there's really no set path. I think it's always about the work, and then making connections and pitching and maneuvering your way around the industry.
Maneuvering. Moving the people around a little bit. I suppose as an author, as a novelist, you kind of have that ready-made back catalogue. So if a comic editor comes along and says, "Oh, I really like such and such," you've got that in the locker, haven't you? As opposed to say someone like me who's not an author, and I'd have to please read my scripts. Please.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely helps if you've published other things. It certainly could help get your foot in the door or get noticed. If you put yourself in the position of an editor at a publishing house, they want to know that you could deliver on time, that you're going to be professional. So you kind of get over that first hump. But I think it still comes down to coming up with a really good idea that they want to do. It's I find that comics are extremely competitive, even compared to the world of novel writing, and there's a lot of people that want to do it. So you always have to be at the top of your game and pitching and really finding an idea that resonates with them. So.
Okay, cool. Do you think we're going to come back to the competitive element because that intrigued me a little bit? Do you think it's easier for artists to exit the comic book world because they can rock up? Do you think it's easier for artists to break into the comic book because they can rock up with a portfolio and say?
So I wouldn't say anything's easy or easier than anything else.
Okay.
I think the one way that artists can break in that I think writers can't is by showing their stuff online, and then you could just visually see there's certain sites online that I know a lot of writers are active on, DeviantArt, for example.
Yeah.
So you could also have a portfolio of your work that you're showing to editors at Comic Cons. A lot of editors actually set up and they view art, and a lot of artists break in that way. It's harder to do that with writing because I think it's harder to just show like that you're a good writer without like getting somebody to commit to reading something. So I think the only advantage that you'd have is that it's visual and you could just show, because I think you could just tell if something's good or it's not good just by looking at it.
The art's very more instant, isn't it? It's very much
ooh,
I like that. Ooh, I don't. Ooh, he draws like such and such. Ooh, she draws like them. That's cool. All right. You mentioned earlier just then that writing in comics is competitive. All right. I'm intrigued a little bit about this because the amount of books I see on a weekly basis reviewing for Comic Crusaders, and the various pods I'm on, just because there's a lot of them doesn't mean they're all good. So how do you manage to stay on top of your game? How do you manage to find that hook? The one that kind of goes, this is the book that I'm going to
do. Really good question. I think the ones that, if someone seems to be having success in anything, but let's just stick to comics for this example. You're only seeing the successes, right? So like when someone publishes, if someone's published 5 graphic novels, like you're seeing the 5 really solid graphic novels. You're not seeing like the pitches that went nowhere.
Yeah, that's where you're coming from.
So you have to like get, I think you have to get a handle on what's good and what's not good, and having your own like inner, I think Hemingway used to call it a shit detector. Like you need your shit detector going, and I think that takes a while. That takes a lot of trial and error as a writer. Like you have to have experience, and it's just from doing it. I mean, that's the only way you get a sense of like what's good or bad. But I think as you go on, at least for me, and I think other writers have told me the same thing, I think you get a little bit more confident that what you're writing is going to be at least pretty good. I mean, like, you're never going to get everyone to love something, but you know that something's going to be, you're going to work on an idea that you're going to be able to finish, that the majority of people will hopefully like, that has legs, so to speak.
Yeah, cool. I like that. So how is writing for comics different? Because you've been successful. You've done novels, you've done film tie-ins. You've worked across different publishers. So you're a man who is multifaceted when it comes to this writing gig. There's some TV tie-in. There's something original. There's a comic book. How do they kind of all sort of fit into each other?
Well, the challenge for me is always to, when I'm switching, especially if I'm working on 2 projects at the same time, let's say a comic and a novel, it's getting into like a very different mindset when I'm writing each one. A book is obviously very internal and it's all going on inside my head, and comics are very collaborative. I'm talking about the ideas much more than I normally would when I write a novel, because I'm pitching editors and then we're developing it often. We're developing the story often together before I sit down and start writing. So it's much more collaborative, but from the work itself, it's really, it's going to seem obvious, but it's because it's like, it's a visual medium. Comics, you have to envision a story in a completely different way. You're thinking about the images and the space, the space of how much space you have to work with. An average comic is about 20 to 22 pages, right? So when you have an idea for like what a first issue is, as opposed to a chapter or group of chapters for a novel, where you don't really have to think that precisely about where it starts and where it ends and how each page is going to end. You really have to think about it in a very compartmentalized way. You're thinking about the first page, how you're going to have little moments of tension to like end the page. What's the most dramatic way to end the page? The most suspenseful way to end the page. The page turn effect, like you start thinking about the odd even pages and what it's going to be like to turn the page and see something dramatic. Like he walks into the room and sees like, there's a dead body, like, so you want to show that, where in a novel, you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking about the best way to tell the story. So it's a completely different mindset. That's the main thing, like thinking visually.
Yeah.
Almost like a cinematographer, maybe, like closer to being a novelist closer to being a cinematographer than a novelist, probably.
I could totally see that. I can, do you write for comic books? Do you write for a full script, or do you do the Marvel method where you give like the barest of details?
I do, I believe what's like a full script. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I kind of thought, looking at the details in this book, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, this is a full script kind of guy going on here. Definitely.
Well, I'll usually have like a description of the scene, the dialogue in the scene. I think there are some writers, I've seen some scripts, some comic scripts where they're much more, like Neil Gaiman, for example. I saw one of his scripts, and he's much more in depth about like every little detail that he wants. Maybe because he thinks that's important. I only write what I think is important to the story. Like if there needs to be like a specific object in the scene, I'll say this object's in the scene. I try to leave as much as possible to the artist. So so there's some combination of like not having too much. Like I don't want to have some vision that I just think is cool, because I have the belief that the artists are better than I am, much better than I am visually. Like, so I just want to give them an idea of like what it looks like, and then and hopefully it's going to be better than anything I could even imagine, and that's often the case. And there's certainly in Casual Fling that was the case. Like a lot of the detail, facial expressions that Dalibor got caught in this comic are really crucial for the tension of the comic, for really getting you engaged with the characters. So he really dug deep into the characters in particular in this book. Some books you could rely on the action and suspense. The artist like takes it to another level that way. This way, I think it's really in the characters, at least in issue 1, like in the characters and in building suspense and like this eerie, foreboding vibe that it has.
Yeah. So the artist we're talking about is Dalibor Talijek. I hope
that's good enough. Hey, he's pronounced it better than me.
Yeah, I am notorious. My mutant power is to get people's names pronounced completely wrong. It took me 3 months to say Tom Napolitano correctly. It always comes out as Neapolitan. Like the ice cream flavor. He's never going to be on the show, but bless him. But no, it's my curse. So the art. I tell you what. Why don't we dive in? Let's dive in and have a look at this book. Let's do that because the book is out now. All right, so we're not breaking any sort of code with any sort of anything on there. We are not going to delve massively in here because you know what? Both me and Jason want you to go out and buy the book. All right, don't be just watching this pod saying we're going to show everything that goes on. That ain't going to happen. All right, so the kind of things we're talking about. Let's see. For me, I love the first panel. I absolutely adore is this panel here, where the hubby is trying to sort out the smoke alarm. Did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, I mean, this is a story about a husband and wife. They're in a. I mean, I wouldn't describe their marriage as being bad, but there's tension in their marriage. It's sort of reached the point. There's 2 young kids. He's a stay-at-home dad. She's a high-powered lawyer, and this sort of got into a rut in their life. And the whole way this story works is it has to be as real. I felt it has to be as like real as possible. So from that first panel, I just wanted to put you immediately into this sort of familiar, but like familiar situation of domestic chaos that's like going on, like on a typical morning for them, where like a few things are going wrong at the same time. She's leaving for work, so I wanted you to like instantly understand their dynamic, like in the first page. And again, like Dalibor, look what he did. Like he just made it like so visceral, like those moments. Yeah.
This absolutely rocks. I saw this page and it made me smile. I was like, has Jason got cameras in my house? Because that is us. That is us, minus the kids. We have a dog. That is us on a Sunday when either my wife or I decide to be clever and cook an English breakfast. You know, the bacon, the sausage, the egg, the smoke alarm goes off. I was like, this dude has got it. You know, it's well observed, is I guess the kind of, you know, I think you've absolutely nailed the head, nailed on the head there, definitely. Facial elements, we talked about a little bit, bang on perfect. You know, you can see there's that level of tension, maybe that level of monotony.
Yeah, I mean,
the characters.
it's yeah, I mean, I wanted it to be, you know, again, like I wanted to just get a sense of that dynamic. They are at like a monotonous point in their marriage. Some extremely dramatic things are about to happen, but this is the point they are in their lives, and that's why I wanted that to be the starting point, because things are about to change drastically. So I wanted you to see where they've been. Often it's time, you know, a challenge for me is like to think about where I want to start the story. So I think I went through a few different versions before I landed on that, and I felt like the story has to start with them, like at that moment, like to show the whole family, like right from the.
Definitely. Where's the inspiration for this book? Because you look at Previews World, and it pretty much name drops a really successful movie. And whilst I can appreciate that movie's going to turn up somewhere down the line, I don't think it's really evident in that first issue. Yeah. So, but
the movie we're talking is there's definitely a Fatal Attraction vibe to the whole story. So, I mean, definitely it was something we talked about. I talked about with the editors, Axel Alonso, and the other editors when we were developing the idea. It's obviously different because the person who steps out of their marriage, and this is the woman as opposed to the
it's inversed, isn't it?
And it's going to go in a much. I'm not giving anything away, but like just don't have too many expectations where it's going to go, because I think it's going to go into some very surprising directions. But Fatal Attraction was definitely an inspiration. I think movies from the 90s. In the last book I did for AWA was Red Border, which was a thriller that took place on the Texas border, like right now, and completely different milieu. I would say that an inspiration for this book came more from some of the novels I've written, the psychological thrillers about real people. I sometimes say like ordinary people in extraordinary situations, where one bad decision could change the course of their life. And that's what happens in issue 1 of this book. Like she makes a really bad decision that she's going to regret, but it's that sort of story that I was definitely going for.
I think, yes, I can see. I didn't see it the first one. I read the book first time. I didn't see the Fatal Attraction element. It wasn't until I looked at Previews World that I saw it and I kind of then thought, oh, have a think about that. And for those that want to check out the review, check out Comic Crusaders. Look for me. It's on there. It's out this week. It's in the new review section. Go check it out. It'll also be on Comic Book Roundup for all the people who like the meta scores. But other movies that kind of sprung to mind when I was thinking about this, maybe a little bit of disclosure, because there's a little bit of passive aggressiveness from the boss.
Michael Douglas in general, you know.
Yeah.
But I said the end behind me, so I'm obsessed with Michael Douglas, obviously.
Oh God, we're going streets of San Francisco in a minute. Then, oh no. Also, a little bit of Body of Evidence, which is a really awful movie, but there's that element of kind of like the bad guy in the book is the one trying to lead her astray, trying to convince her that she's something that she may not be, or she might want to be. Who knows? You know, we're only one issue in. So is there that 90s kind of I don't want to say sexy film. What can I say? That kind of
erotic thriller. I mean, we're definitely
yeah.
going for like the erotic thrillers
Yeah, is
of
that
the
kind of
90s.
yeah? Does that kind this
Again,
book?
we think there's going to be like a super modern twist to all of that, but that was definitely the vibe we were going for. I would also
Okay.
add classic film noir, which a
Yes.
lot of those movies from the 90s were influenced by themselves.
Yeah.
Like I think if Fatal Attraction was done in 1955, you would have said it's like a
Yeah.
noir thriller. Um, so there's definitely a noir sort of vibe again, which is often like a story where somebody makes a bad decision, where there's not necessarily a clear line between black and white, between good and evil. Like there's a lot of gray in the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
So those sort of stories are definitely influences.
Yeah. I think I said in my review that there's actually there's not a bad well apart from the big bad. There's no between the husband and the wife character. There's no bad guy.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. The kind of
There's going to be there is.
don't say
There's definitely a villain in the story, but uh, but she makes a bad decision, meets somebody, makes a bad decision, um, steps out of her marriage, and you have to maintain some sort of empathy for her at the same time. So that was, in writing this sort of story, that's the challenge. That's the thing I find most exciting is for the writer. Like, how do I get you to like still kind of be rooting for her, even after she makes this bad decision? And part of the way I hope I do that is by making her really relatable, very understandable. If you're anybody, I think can imagine being in the same situation that she's in. But I think there's that level of grayness to her character. All like you're trying to decide, like, should I have empathy for her, or shouldn't I? And to me, that's the most interesting place to keep a reader or viewer just at like wondering about the character, like which way is this going to go? Like, so there's like that psychological tension while you're watching this. Dark, exciting story unfold.
It's like watching a car crash because you kind of you're watching it and you're like, oh no, she's not flirting about. They're not talking about Italy. Oh no, they're not talking about wines. Oh, why is a foot stroking his leg? No, the husband's a good guy. He's got the kids. She's not gonna. And before you know it, it's all It's
and like a car crash, you're glad you're not in it.
Yeah, there is that. Did Dalibor do the colors as well, or there's a colorist, isn't?
Danny, the artist Danny, did the cover. Yeah, and she did the first cover. That Mark Diata did the second.
That's right. And what about the color scheme? Is the colors Dalibor or?
No, Marco Lesko
Cool.
did the colors. Great job. I mean,
perfect. Yeah.
I'm always amazed. Like, before I got into comics, like something I didn't think about much was the colors, the lettering. But I really appreciate like how the colors and letters could like also take a story to another level. It's like subtle. It's something like most readers of comics might not think about that much because you're hooked on the story and I think the best, and that's almost like the most flattering thing for colorists, I would think, is like you're barely aware of it. You just know it's great, but like you're not taken out of the story by like marveling at it at the same time. It just works so well. It's so intrinsic to the story. So I think he does that here.
I think there's a level of darkness to the color scheme that kind of adds to the threat level on a subconscious level. You look at the world in this book, and it's very much, it's not a bright world. The wife character is clearly unhappy. The husband character is clearly unhappy. The kids have their moments. So it's definitely that kind of not bright, it's murky, and that pretty much describes the world that they're living in. So
so it's the colors that do that. I would also say, like, even, and this was a discussion we had, but even the choice to make the background black,
Yeah,
that also like added, gave it like a foreboding
yeah.
sort of feeling.
It draws your attention straight to the panel because
Yeah,
that's where the focus is. You know, you're clearly drawn to it. And I will say, I mean, we're looking at this page at the minute, and the background detail of the actual panel itself. Look at that panel down there. That is just bang on perfect. Yeah, and the bottles and glasses behind the bar, great piece of work. You know,
yeah, it's
what
like it's really really well detailed.
I would like to also point out that I think, whilst we could marvel at the art, I will say that the writing was absolutely, you hit every single tone perfectly. You know, we talked about the start. We're kind of like setting the scene. This is the family. This is what they do, and then like 3 pages in, you go like this. There's the overbearing boss. There's the passive aggressive threat in there. There's the overcompensation that comes about a third of the way into the book, you know, and then there's the revelation that, you know what, she maybe hasn't gotten away with it yet. She's not off the hook. It's absolutely well nuanced. How do you manage to cater for the different tones or vibes that you're generating? Because we say it's car crash, it's an emotional ride. We're interested in her. We're invested in the hubby. We want to know what happened at the recital. All these things. So how do you manage to kind of spin those plates?
Yeah, so with comics, like I was saying, like there's a lot of planning in advance. So you're planning the actual plot and the events that are going to happen in issue one. What's really impossible, I think, to plan, and I think which the editors just leave to the writer and to pull off is getting the attitude of the characters down and the behavior. To really like understanding the characters, like who they are, basic thing like what they want, like what their objective is in the story. For me, like if I understand that about a character, I can make it really real. Dialogue has always been a strength of mine, just because I started out writing plays years ago. Had a few like off Broadway plays. Someday I'll go back to playwriting because I really love playwriting. But then a lot of my novels are dialogue driven. So in comics, it's very natural for me to like move a story forward with dialogue. But it's tricky because like I was saying, there's a lot of planning involved. I know how long it has to be, like what events have to take place. So it's kind of like shoehorning the characters and the dialogue into this sort of mold that is there, which is a lot different than writing a play or writing a novel.
Yeah, because you've got to end on 22 or 28 pages. You've got to make sure that there's enough cliffhanger to get the next person to buy. Whereas the novel, you kind of just, I suppose you can maybe take that like slower thing. Do you write like a Bible for the book, like a kind of, these are the rules of the road for each character? Or is that's I know that's more that's more of a TV thing, but
it's more of a TV thing. I've done that. Let's say I wrote a graphic novel with Andrea Moody for Boom Studios.
Okay.
That was a sort of a fantasy horror novel, which required a lot more world building. So for that, there definitely was somewhat of a Bible. When I did the Wolverine Max series for Marvel, definitely more of a Bible because we're sort of reinventing Wolverine's character. So I definitely had some things that I just wanted to know, like they were just in the background. They might not appear in each issue, but just I knew what the rules were.
And then that story, kind of
what
sets the motivations and why the character acts a certain way. What's if that motivation's the thing that drives them on page one, it might reoccur in issue 3. You've got to make sure it matches. You can't be faced with a similar situation and and act out of character, I
Yeah,
suppose.
so it does require like keeping a lot organized. Yeah, in my head. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Okay, we'll take a quick break before we talk more Casual Fling. For our break, you get an advert of one of our other shows on the UCPN. Everybody who sees this advert loves the advert, and they sorely should, because the show's fantastic. You can check it out on YouTube and, of course, on UCPN. We are talking about the crisis in the Toyverse. There you go. If you're into your figures and your statues, go and check out Crisis in the Toyverse with my friend Bobo. He is an absolute genius when it comes to his
Yeah,
figures.
looks cool.
Honestly, he is as you see him on there. To do the unboxing videos and everything, where you get the figure out, and people complain, "Don't leave it in the box," and all that sort of stuff. No, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. All right, okay, cool. Thank you very much. So we're back. We're with Jason Starr. We're talking Casual Fling. Okay. Question for you then. Casual Fling, AWA Studios. What is it about this type of book that really kind of resonates? And it's not just the sex element, all right? Because other publishers, you've got Sunstone by Stefan Sejic, or Seach, and you've got Swing by Matt Hawkins and Linda Sejic. All have elements of sex in them, but it's all about the character. It's all about the characters. The sex is almost by the by, right? So, what is it about this type of book? It has that naughty element to it, but what is it, do you think, that makes them so popular?
I think it's definitely the voyeuristic feeling that you get from this sort of story, an erotic thriller where you see a character doing things that you sort of wish you could be doing in your own life.
I don't mean to brag or anything, but
but you might not want to do it, because of the consequences.
Yeah.
In an erotic thriller, or in Casual Fling in particular, you could live vicariously through the character, sort of get those thrills out. So I think to me, that's where like the thrilling element comes to it. Like where you get the thrills could be in a comic, could either be from violence, it could be from action, it could be from heroic, characters doing heroic things. It could also be from characters stepping out of their marriage, but it has to be done. It's a challenge to pull it off. I mean, so that was what intrigued us. I also think we definitely. I was definitely thinking about a story that could potentially be like a TV show or a movie. So I was definitely thinking about writing something with strong characters, a strong female heroine in the lead role. Strong characters. There's going to be a character that comes in later in the story that Dalibor, and I think is like one of our favorite characters that we've done in comics, and we've been hoping to do like a whole other series just about this other character who has not appeared yet. So you're gonna have to keep going with Casual Fling to meet this character. But
that is the definition of dangling a carrot. There you go.
But yeah, so this other, and you'll know who the character is. You'll know who the character is. But definitely thinking about strong characters, actors would be interested in playing. So I think it's just a modern reality that you know, it doesn't have to what I'm creating doesn't necessarily have to live in the comics medium alone. I think comics are great, perhaps even better than novels as far as like lending toward adaptation, because you can actually see it. It's almost like storyboarded, movie. So it's very easy for directors and producers to like see, to envision like how this could be adapted.
So I recently rewatched, because I'm working from home. So when I'm doing my stuff at home, I normally have a movie playing on the background and stuff. And I watched Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire movie. Don't hate me, but I don't think those movies have aged particularly well. But there's the bit where he throws his suit in the trash can and walks away from it. And I'm thinking, they've just taken that from the John Romita Jr. cover. That shot, it's just, it's a classic cover from, I don't know, it's Amazing Spider-Man 39 or something crazy like that. So I was like, come on, do better than that. It's fine. So, yeah, I agree that some comic books can be translated well into movies. So that obviously begs the question: where's Michael Douglas fit in this casting?
I know, you have to find a role for him. Yeah.
I couldn't resist that one. Sorry.
Trying to think if there is maybe there's
a curmudgeon old grumpy old man who says
there's a law enforcement character later on, but who he might be. Yeah.
It could say something ridiculous like, "If I was 30 years younger."
Well, now you could just age him down. I mean,
you can have that line. CGI now.
Stacey,
whatever. Yeah. I mean, the whole Mandalorian thing. How young does Luke look?
That's right.
Spoilers. I'm not saying anything else at all. I'm definitely talking about WandaVision. No, I'm not saying nothing at all. All right. How was working with AWA? Because they're made up predominantly of a lot of ex-Marvel guys. So Marvel's pretty much the superhero. I mean, Marvel don't even have a Vertigo line like DC. So how was working for I want to say ex-Marvelites. I'm going to go with it. Ex-Marvel. Yeah. What was it like
Bill
working with ex-Marvelites?
And Axel Alonso, came from Marvel. I worked with Axel at Marvel and Wolverine on a Punisher Max issue, on an Ant-Man novel. So we'd worked together before. So when he started AWA, he definitely reached out to a number of writers who he'd worked with or wanted to work with, and asked them to pitch projects. So this is a lot different from working at Marvel, though, because it's creator-owned comics. The creators are much more involved in the IP, especially for projects that we're developing on our their original project. So there's more of a that's why there's definitely more of a thinking about the potential movie, thinking about the potential TV show than there is doing licensed work for Marvel, where it's still kind of in the back. When I wrote Wolverine Max, it was in the back of my mind that this would be like a cool Wolverine movie, but I wouldn't have like a personal stake in that. So it's a lot. It's definitely a lot different doing creator-owned stuff. And I mean, just working with Axel, like an editor in particular, who I'm very familiar with, is great. And everyone at AWA is, I mean, they've hired like some really great editors and publicity people. So it's like really just a great family of people at AWA.
And you have the Council of Creators as well, don't they? Kind of help with the quality aspect of the book. And I've got to say, whatever model there is to doing to publish it, I have not seen a bad AWA book at all.
I mean, they've all been solid. It's true.
They've there were recently 18 months, maybe not even that. Upshot comic,
and a lot of
but they've had like how many big hits,
And a lot of different genres also.
Definitely.
Even some young adult stuff now. So I think they just want to do like what they consider to be like good quality stuff. So they're not like locked into any particular genre, so it seems. And of course, building the new universe also, but that's like another.
Yeah. I like the diversity because we talk a lot about diversity in comic books, but when you've got a publisher like AWA that kind of don't have one particular genre that they focus on, you get diversity through naturally, because the writers and the artists that come through are diverse. So the writers and artists have got the diverse methods of storytelling, whereas other, if you're working on a big two, for example, you've got to have that house style. It seems It's like, do you still read comic books? Do you read comics?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So every time I pick up a Marvel book, it frustrates me because there's always humor in it, and I think to myself, not every character has to be.
I like the jokey, like aside.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough.
Because I only worked on. I did that a little bit. Admittedly, in the Ant-Man, I did a little bit of that. But
it works. It works for certain characters. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not all like.
I couldn't have the Punisher do that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what you get. It's like you read the Avengers book. It could be plug and play from Guardians of the Galaxy because it's like there's the serious one, there's the funny one, there's the one that does this. I mean, I get it. Spider-Man, he's a funny guy. He's been funny since Peter Parker pulled on the. Well, maybe after Uncle Ben got shot, he was funny. But he's a funny guy. He's a wisecracking guy. I don't need to see a host of mutant books cracking funny. It's like, what? Cyclops isn't funny. Why is he trying to tell a joke? What's going on here?
It's sort of the voice that I think it's like sort of the voice of Marvel. Like in the Marvel movies, there's always in the middle of a fight scene, they're making like sarcastic comments. The other thing is I think that the other familiar thing in Marvel movies is the technology, like the way they make the technology always sound like really cool, but also like vague. And when I was writing the Ant-Man novel, I got notes from one of the editors, like vague up the technology, like make it vaguer. Just make it vague and sound.
It's not like Star Trek Next Generation, where by the time of the 7th season ends, you already know about neutrinos and God knows what else. Let's invert the deflector shield and attract the neutrinos from the warp nacelles. What? What are you talking about? It doesn't work. But the Marvel movies, I mean, they are horrendously plug and play. You can just swap the characters around and still have the. I like some of them. What can I say? I'm a DC guy, so there you go. Which is I like old school Marvel. I'm a Silver Age Marvel guy, but DC predominantly. Okay, cool. So you said you're reading comics at the moment. What are you reading? What are you enjoying?
I mean, lately just a lot of the AWA stuff. Like I really loved Hotel, like in particular, the Delaware worked on the Resistance. Krista Faust has done some great stuff. Bad Mother.
Bad Mother, love.
Yeah, it was really good.
What a great It's Mike Deodato on the art, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
What a difference! Because I remember Mike Deodato when he started on Wonder Woman. It was all cheesecake, and then he goes over on the Marvel. He becomes like massive superhero type thing. Then you pick up Bad Mother. It's like, whoa, that's the difference between having a house style and doing something that is totally what you want to do. Yeah.
Outside of AWA, Philadelphia, I really like. Rodney Barnes,
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. So, big question.
Oh.
All right.
I thought these were all big questions.
Well, some are bigger than others. I always say, it's not that much of a big question. If you could work on a big two character, if you got the phone call from Marvel or DC, which character would you like to write?
For Marvel, definitely Deadpool. Just because I just think I'd be really good with the humor and the pop culture stuff. There's some novels I've written that
Right?
have like a similar vibe, so I think I'd be great at that. And I would say Batman. I've done a little Batman for DC. I never really dug deep. And I wrote those. I wrote the Gotham tie-in novels. So I wrote like the backstory of Bruce Wayne before this series Gotham started. Like imagining what his relationship with his parents was like, etc.
Yeah.
But I could definitely lean in hard to like a Batman story of some sort.
Cool. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So, Casual Fling, #1, it's out in the stores now. It's 5 issues, right?
4 issues. It's gonna be 4 issues, actually. Yeah.
4
Hey.
It says
Hey,
on
we
my
get it all.
preview. It says on my preview
four
copy.
intense
It says
issues.
1
Four
of 5.
4 intense issues. No, I think there was a mistake in the preview. It's 4. It's always been 4 issues.
I'm going to have to go back and change my review now. Son of a bitch. Son of a... I got to edit that now. All right, excellent. So it's monthly. So
Yep, every month.
yeah. Are there plans for a trade paperback after that?
Yep, definitely.
Good. Excellent. Cool. And what's next? What's next for you then?
Well, right now the Red Border trade paperback is also out. So if you haven't read Red Border, my previous AWA book, definitely check that out. I have a new novel coming out in June called Curved Glass, which is a alternate reality thriller that I'm excited about. And after that, I don't know. I'm gonna have to find something else.
Find something else. Just it's fine. As a writer, do you find that you kind of like jotting down ideas and kind of coming back to them after the months and thinking, what was I saying about this one?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I think writers often get the question like, "Where do you get your ideas?" As if that's the hard part. I mean, it's hard to get a good idea. It's definitely hard to get a good idea. I have tons of ideas, but yeah, it's not a. I've never heard any writer actually say it's a problem for them to come up with ideas. Maybe if you haven't written a novel yet and you're just starting out, like but once you get into that mindset of thinking of ideas, that's not the hard part.
So
Executing them is hard.
So I was kind of done, but you've just kind of given me another question to think about. So, as a writer, then, do you kind of have the big moments of the story kind of in your head, and then work backwards to join them all together, or do you kind of go like A, B, C, D, or do you know what I mean? Does it follow like
Yeah. Definitely, I have the big
timeline?
moments. Definitely, really good question. I definitely have, especially in a comic. I definitely have the set pieces in mind. In fact, that's what I always tell. I teach writing at St. Francis College in their master's program, and I often say like, you shouldn't have writer's block if you have like a sense of like what the big scenes are in your story. Because if you're stuck about what's going to happen next, you can always jump ahead to that big scene that is going to come up, that big gunfight or whatever. If you're writing a western or whatever it is, the metaphorical gunfight, and you could write that scene instead of doing nothing during that day. So, but I do always like to know what the big scenes are in my head. It helps me know that there's going to be like a progression of events and leading toward like what the big climax is. I also always want to know what the ending is, because then it just feels like I'm doing a maze or something, and I just have to figure out my way out. Because I know there's an end. I just have to figure out how to get there.
So, reading Casual Fling #1, for me, there's maybe 2 massive big scenes and 2 big climax moments in this scene. Bad choice of words. Read the book, you'll find out why. But I think it's some of the smaller bits that are equally as interesting. The kind of things So we've mentioned it before, to be fair. It's like the passive aggressive stuff from the husband, the boss having a go, saying she's not putting the effort in, the temptation of something else. All these are the little moments that lead to the big thing, you know. So you kind of like that's the big moment, but you know, I'm interested in how you get there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I really try to hone in on the characters and on definitely in this character, like in this story, on what each character wants, like in each scene, like what the objective is in each scene. So like I know what the big story is, I know what the issue is going to be, I know what the big moments are, but then there's like a micro level of just focusing on the page. Like how do I build suspense just in this page?
Yeah.
So I'm like locked into thinking about that. And then when I get to the next page, I worry about like how am I going to build suspense in that page? Like so then I'm very focused on like what I'm doing on a micro level.
The micro level. Okay, cool. Excellent. There you go. So to see the fruits of Jason's labours, you got to go down your comic book shop. Make sure it's safe to do so. Sanitize your hands when you go in and wear your face mask. All right. Or do your click and collect or your curbside pickup or whatnot. Or even if you must, buy the thing from Comixology. There you go. As long as you buy it. You know what I'm saying? Plus, Jason's just saved you like $3.99 by saying it's only 4 issues, not 5. Yeah, there you go. You're saving money already. Go and check it out. Casual Fling #1 is out in stores right now. Get it ordered. Get the rest of them on your pull list. Get this series. There you go. Thank you very much. Jason, it's been an absolute blast talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I really do genuinely appreciate it. And well done on a really fantastic book.
Thank you. And anytime.
Excellent. Guys, that's it for this show. But don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite podcasts, including Crisis in the Toyverse. You've got the Definitive Crusade, where we talk about DC books. And of course, No Price Podcasts. And if you want to hear about some old books, don't forget to check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, exclusive on YouTube. All right. This is Johnny the Machine Hughes saying, see ya.